to look at that for a view. We're looking down across the Nid Gorge. Be buzzing around your head, absolutely. So this is a railway viaduct we're looking at, and it's kind of one of those famous views in Yorkshire. But also, if I just kind of spin us around, we'll come back to this in just a minute. Just look at the positioning now of this castle up on the rock. What a commanding position when you start looking down. Gnats, right? Noceums, right? Looking down across the gorge, you see why this is a brilliant piece of land to hold, right? You can see, and look at the houses all kind of perched up there. So that's the railway track, the viaduct, where the trains, if you come in by train, will try and maybe end up by the station. And, you know, you'll sort of see, but isn't it just wonderful? So the River Nid is about 60 miles from the sea, but the whole thing's up at the seaside field. We'll talk about that. Does the Royal Line go to Edinburgh? No, DT. This is on the kind of Leeds to York line. So it would, I think, Allison or any locals run today. But you can get trains here, so all stops. It's quite old-fashioned, really. Bit of a kind of branch line kind of setup. I can zoom in, but we're going to go down the hill and we're going to get closer. So let's give you a little bit of that. Are the boats for crew? The pleasure boats down there. We're going to have a look at the pleasure boats as we kind of go down. So I'll just give you a shot. I'll go back out of zoom. And the name of the river is the River Nid. We're in Nidderdale. And Nid, we think, means hidden gorge because it runs right under the bridge. So I'll talk about the bridge in its history in just a minute. We'll get down to the bottom of there. But let's just drink in, just for a minute, the view of the Nid Gorge. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to walk us down the hill. So we're going to end up at the bottom down there, down by the boats. Charlotte's a phenomenal view. So the River Nid is what kind of remains, or are these glaciers we've talked about a lot, haven't we, over the last 2 years? Glaciers smashing their way through the last ice age. Lasted 30,000 years, and throughout you have these glaciers on the move. So of course, there's still glaciers active in parts of North America, in parts of Europe, but not so much here. That's going to finish their movement. But what they did is they just literally smashed their way through. They're kind of an act of sort of supreme violence. I'll come over here and give some more shots. Glaciers are unbelievable, so absolutely all-powerful that they crush anything that moves on the way down. So consequently, how far away is the tower in the deep background? You mean the tower of the church? Oh, we're going to walk up past it. Not far at all. Not far at all. I'll just give you this view down here, and then we're going to work our way down the hill. Is it possible to get up where you are right now, or can you only do it by walking up? Well, you can drive up to the top, but if you want to get to the bottom, you pay your money and takes your choice whether you want to walk up or walk down. But there's only one way ultimately, and this is it. So, visit Knaresborough. Okay, so let's kind of double back on ourselves, and we'll start working our way down the hillside. So, as I say, the glacier, what they kind of do is they smash away the softer parts, then they start to hit the limestone, which is very hard, very, very dense, and then it kind of can't go anymore. So consequently, that's what creates this valley side. You've got very, very high-sided rock up here. So again, as we go around, I'll just show you how this sort of view changes. It's sort of fascinating to kind of see how, as we move, the perspective and the view change. Because obviously what we're doing is we're going to go a bit lower, and it's going to change. But isn't the reflection beautiful as well today? Look at that. Let's just, if we get some flowers along the way, we'll kind of stop on the way down. But I'm going to go slowly and carefully because we'll drink it up and savour it, enjoy it. There's a lot of people on. There's no kind of rush. I'm not in a rush to finish. We are going to run late because, you know, we are. Because it's nice here. It's lovely here. And so if your places to be, that's great. We'll come again. But not on Hager, in other places. But for those of us that want to just sit back, take our time and just drink up this town. Can you hear the birds if I just shut up for a minute? Can you hear? So it's about a 45-minute drive, 45 minutes, something like that. So as I say, the glacier carves it out, so it leaves behind this rather steep side of valley. And of course that then, 120 feet deep. Thank you, Colin. And of course the river is what's left then, it's going to melt ice. and it joins onto the River Ouse at a place called Nunmonkton, near York. So let's just work our way. So just tell me, who's actually been? One or two people are saying in years gone by they've been. Mrs. John will probably say she's been. You can say hello. Oh, my good lady wife has been today.
Hi everyone. I've been here loads of times.
Do you ever get bored of this view?
Nope.
Let's look at it one more time. There we go, look at that. People come from all over Yorkshire. So Stephen's been here for the day. Hayley's been to see Mother Shipton. I'm going to talk about Mother Shipton in a little bit. And that's quite all right. You go on. That's quite all right. Thank you very much. Just letting some folks go. Thank you, Storm. Just letting some people get in front of us and go down. So we're not blocking them. We don't want to. Our video tour, do we? To get there. No problem at all. Lovely day to visit. So it's just one of these destinations, and I know I've said this before, and I know some people probably like shake their head and think, "What is he on about?" But it always makes me feel like we're at the seaside. We get down to the pleasure boats for reasons I just can't explain, other than it just does. Water and ice cream and boats, and it's a kind of pleasure. It's pleasure. It's leisure. But let's not lose sight. This is a former industrial town. We're going to talk again a little bit about the kind of linen and so forth. But in the meantime, let's. Many fewer people I've heard about. Okay, so we're walking down, and it's so pretty here as well. The kind of like the pathways and the way the houses are just kind of higgledy-piggledy, kind of cut in. The train station, I think we're going to finish at the train station today, because I love the train station. It's a little mini masterpiece of Thomas Prosser. We come over here, we can see the weir in the River Nid. So can you see the kind of accelerated movement over here? So weirs are created, they're kind of man-made, and they're done to create turbulence in the water to drive water wheels. So this is taking us back to the time, obviously of, industry driven by water mills, water wheels, all that. So sometimes rivers are a little bit too sedentary. So in order to be able to drive a mill, be able to drive power, drive kind of the Industrial Revolution, you need to create turbulence. So you put in place, basically barriers that the water has to encounter. And so when it does, it creates this volatility. Can you see that? And so going from being a still mill pond, what you think is turbulence, the turbulence can then drive a wheel that can power your machinery, and you get. Yeah, it's pretty steep. Yeah, we're going for it. Oh yeah, that's I feel. So here's another one. We're sort of slightly lower now, but that's kind of nice, right? Does that work for you? Jazz, you're most welcome. There's a train going across the top. Can you see the train? So that's a train. Be heading into York. They'll be in York in about 25 minutes. Fairer. Yeah, we do the walking on these tours. You do the sitting back and chatting. So let's kind of go down and let's go and see the waterside. Don't do stairs, really? Oh dear. Well, thankfully my legs are still pretty good, and I'm going to get better. I'm only 53, so I'm going to get better at this. So let's have a look. There's a kind of really cool, lots of little cubby holes down here as well. If I was a teenager, I'd love to be here because there's like a little hidey hole up here. And anybody's in there, but this is definitely where I would have want to hang out if I'd been here as a teenager. Kathy's only 51. A mere sprog. Coming into your prime, Kathy. So look at this. How cool is a cave in a rock? Imagine you're a teenager, right? You see all the graffiti. You come down here for a kiss and a cuddle, all right? How cool is that? Look at that. That's your view. It'd be easy, wouldn't it, to get a bit amorous here? It carried away if you weren't careful.
Not today, John.
Not today, though. Mrs. John saying not today. Love grotto, absolutely. I think so. That's a great way of putting it. And ubiquitous ivy. So again, just different views, the kind of same thing. Don't tell me you ladies were all good girls. I won't believe you for a minute. But I'm sure you are these days. But you know what I'm talking about. So let's say there's a bit of end of term feel about today that I can't quite put my finger on. But there we are. Can I meet Mrs. John before I go? Yes, you can. So Jazz or Jen, just want to say hello before you go.
Hello.
You might not see you for a while again. Soon on Hago. Last appearance on Hago, but many more appearances in the future. So,
Absolutely.
hi, Mrs. John. There we go.
Hello, everyone.
There you
I've
go.
enjoyed my cameo roles.
We've got 233 on it right now. So that's enough for Mrs. John. Let's see Knaresborough. Look at Mrs. John anytime. Whereas Knaresborough demands more attention than that. Hi, John and Karen. I just sent you an email before we went live. I don't know if you've seen that. So we're getting sort of steep-sided now. So I'm just going to spin this around the other way so you can kind of see quite how effective this was as a kind of defensive system. You know, it's really brilliant. So, you know, it's so impressive. Oh, thank you. I'll look for that at the end of the tour. So down we come to the bottom. I'll just show you the craggy formation, and we're going to look at the boats, and we'll just melt all over again about the viaduct and kind of. Then we'll go and talk about Mother Shipton in a little bit towards the end of the tour. So thank you for your patience. It's a great story, but there's a time to tell stories, and I've got this tour sort of nailed. I kind of know when I want to tell the stories. So for those that wanted me to get Mother Shipton, I urge a little more patience, and that patience, I promise you, will be more than rewarded. So you can see we're at the bottom now. Another train coming back across, going the other way, on its way to Harrogate first, and then towards Headingley in Leeds, I think is where they're going to terminate down there. So let me just kind of show you these rock formations just down here. It is patience and virtue, and of course they were names, weren't they? In the Victorian era, they loved all that, didn't they? Patience and fortitude and prudence, giving those sorts of names. That's that hidey hole. So that's what you're looking at, the canoodle shack, the canoodling cave. That's there. How cool is that? So these rock formations are called crags, and there's a kind of really interesting kind of, without getting too much into kind of geology, there's sandstone and gritstone and limestone all kind of worked in. But this is, if you like, yeah, there's the canoodling cave, just there. Canoodle shack, right? You're running with this now, I can feel it. So you can see here, there's netting on here just to stop the stones kind of falling down. The signal drops a little bit here, so I'm not going to sort of dwell. I just want to bring you down so you can have a look at the snogging. Well, you've brought the tone down there, Sharon. Snogging, but yeah, if you say so.
Just in case you're tempted, John. Rock climbing.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can't climb the rock, I'm afraid, but we can show it to you. So you see the difference here now then in this stone. See the sandstone, almost bright orange. You see the red rocks. It's the same stone there in Colorado, the Carboniferous. It's only about 325 million years old. So that, of course, is at the bottom. But isn't it amazing? So this we looked at Eddie, weren't we, a minute ago? So let's just form a little perspective over there, and then we'll go and talk about only exactly. It's a mere 325 million years old. That's all. What it's been doing so long to get here, I have no idea. But apologies, anybody. I always say this because I think it's only fair and respectful for those that go by the 7-day thing of creation. I actually think there's something in it. I think it's 7 ages. I think it's a kind of metaphor because there are literally 7 ages of kind of prehistory in terms of geology. So I think it's perfectly true to be able to say it was created in 7, but I don't think it's 7 days, I think it's 7 stages. That's my little take on it, but I don't think that something's wrong just because we might have got the language a bit wrong over the year. The trouble, red rocks, that's right in Colorado. It's the thing with the Bible isn't it? Is it started is it Aramaic and then into ages of formations. So there we go. Could be 7 billion years. Of course it could. So I'm just saying that kind of respectfully, not to cut across. So some people also go, well, I think that the world was created 5,500 BC. I think that is for the birds. But the rest of it, I'm perfectly happy with. So there's just work low. Look at that now. Isn't that beautiful? Let's look at just the movement, the stillness. So let's go look at the boats. Because so the name Nid, by the way, comes from a Celtic language. It means hidden or covered river, because this river disappears underground nearby, all the way through, up the valley into Nidderdale. It's kind of underneath. So consequently, Nid, we think, means kind of hidden. And there's evidence of settlement here from about 4,000 years ago. So it's just scrolls, absolutely. And obviously, the Dead Sea Scrolls helped us a great deal with our understanding. But the bottom line is we don't have an original version of the Bible. You know, what we've got is lots and lots of different translations and different sources. And it's very, very difficult to say it's an authoritative sense. What we've got is lots of perspectives and lots of politics. Don't forget, a lot of people have utilised the words that are there to create a view. And I don't want to get into theology. That's kind of unfair. So many books were left out, absolutely. Which Gospels, who chose? Well, Constantine had a huge role to play. The Council of Nicaea in 324, Constantine, our Yorkie, he was there. They decided which Gospel went in, what didn't. The Nicene Creed of 324, it's all, you know, it's all there. It's in the Roman era. It's not in the biblical era. So all these decisions that affect how we might interpret the scriptures now were done in the 4th century AD. They were not done, okay, in the immediate years. We've done 300 years after the death of Christ. So I'm just going to throw that in there. And of course, just before Constantine, Diocletian had absolutely laid into the Christians like nobody else and destroyed so much of the text. Now look at this. There is something about symmetry that just does for us. Photographers know this. And so often you will see photographs that capture repeated patterns. But isn't that just dreamy? Who would not want, it's like canoodling, who wouldn't want to even just socialise, you don't need to canoodle, but to be taken out on a boat and just spend the afternoon bobbing around with an ice cream, maybe a glass of wine, something fizzy, on the River Nid. Some wine and some cheese.
Yes, please.
Absolutely. Right? They've been taken on a boat. Been taken other places though, right? But isn't it just serene? So, so today's all about kind of pleasure boating. But what kind of made Knaresborough really kind of fly was the fact it had this great supply of clean water, and the water moved. So as a result of that, oh really, named Serene, how fantastic. What that meant was that it meant that people were healthier here. So when I think about it, right, fast flowing water, less detritus, the sewerage moves on quickly, you got kind of gravity. So actually people were healthier here because you had a better source of water. The water was very, very clean. So consequently, it was very, very good for treating linens, because in the production of wool and textiles, you need a lot of clean water. It's all that. Now, who remembers? Come on now. Again, let's do Turioki. What do they use as well as water to clean sheep's fleeces to get off the grease? I've told you this over and over. Opposite of Howarth, urine, of course it's stale urine. And let's go on. Let's really push it now. Who can remember what is your family name? If your name is this name, it means that your family used to buy and sell urine. Anybody remember? It's the Fullers. So if you're Fullers, and this was where the offence of taking the piss came from, because people stored their urine and sold it. So it's no wonder that taking the piss was cheeky. That was a yeah, absolutely. That was a very, very horrible thing to do. So Fuller's, yep, like the brewery in London. You're in Leslie's in London, so you'll know about the Fuller's Brewery. So I'm not just to say that their beer is pea weak, but that's where it kind of came from. So consequently, once you've cleaned, obviously, your fleeces, it's about kind of how you treat them, and then how you dye them, how you spin them. Remember in Lavenham, we were talking about fabrics. In Lincoln, we were talking about fabrics, weren't we? And many of the buildings in this area down here are kind of part of the industrial fabric production. So this one, I think, in front of me, look at this view as well. Just look at how it just raises up, because obviously we're at the bottom now. So never drink a brew again. Yeah, you shouldn't, yeah. And wondered what that individual taste of Fuller's beer? Well, now you know. But isn't it magical? It's like Whitby, but not on the seaside, if that kind of makes sense. You know, but look at it. Who wouldn't want to be perched up? Look at that for your terrace. You imagine sitting having your breakfast, your croissant, your coffee up there in the morning. Amazing, right? So these buildings here were former industrial buildings involved in the textile industry. Fantastic. Let's come to Whitby. Hopefully you'll come to Whitby because tickets are selling out fast. Only do 100 because Zoom will only allow me to have 100. So Euro was used to set the die, right? It may have been actually that's probably true. I'm not sure about that, Sharon. But firstly, it was used to break down the fat molecules because in sheep's grease to keep them warm, they have an awful lot of fat. You know, you cook lamb, very fatty, right? Well, that sits right underneath the skin, on a kind of sheep skin. So consequently, I guess it can break down, and it's very, very good. Soft water, lots of soap and urine. Does that? It's the old dye house. We've got lanolin. Thank you, Sid. So you can see here, the frontage of the building on your right is all remains of one of the oldest buildings, erected in 1610. And textiles dyed here by John Warner and his son Simon, an active royalist in the Civil War. So we're up to past the Indigo House. So we're in Lavenham. Join me in the beautiful Lavenham in Suffolk with Woad production. Well, Indigo basically took on and beat Woad because whereas Woad was a kind of like an organic way of treating like treating denim, Indigo was a much better dye. It was much better, held much better. So consequently, Woad, which came from plants, was kind of kicked out, and Indigo took over. So Lavenham blue went, and Indigo came in. So here we are. We're now at the bottom of the viaduct, and we really start to get a sense now of having loads of plaques. Yeah, because it's all referencing the kind of industrial heritage. I think it's really important because it's so easy to kind of get wrapped up in just how pretty it is that if we're not careful, we just sort of miss the fact that, you know, this town emerged for a kind of reason. Now, latterly, it kind of hopped onto Scarborough's bootstraps as a spa. Of course it did. But that isn't where it started. It starts with being industrial mills and using its clean water and the water movement. Look at that sky behind there now. Isn't that nice? I'm trying to get the cars out because cars are annoying, right? Ah, there we go. Look at that. That's the one. There's the postcard. There's the one. One last time, guys. Give me that, you know, most postcards in a day with that one. That'd be lovely. Some more lovely flowers and blooms up here. I'm hoping, I probably won't get there, because I think I had about 70,000 to get this weekend. But if I can, it'd be lovely to retire from Hago with 1.5 million postcards. Whether it happens or not, time will tell. It's irrelevant. It doesn't really matter now. But it would be nice just to be able to kind of retire with 1.5 million. But look at that. Stephen, you're doing a good job. But please don't take more now just because I've said that. It's just something that will kind of be nice, but kind of nothing more than kind of nice. So, as I say, the fast lane water is good for the finish line. Yeah, we've got plenty of time yet, I think. We're going to go on the bridge over there, the low bridge, and talk about Mother Shipton. But this is obviously the bridge, and there was a big mill sort of on the side of there, which you can't really see. No, I don't want to film because there's family there. But Walton and Company, who made very fine textile linens. You might have heard of Walton. The tablecloths there, still loved by royalty. Walton and Company. Go on their website and still see Walton still going to make it here. Very, very fine linens. And a Queen Victoria took money in 1838 to supply the royal household. So they've still got their royal warrant. And they were just on this other side of the bridge here. So the arrival of the kind of railways sort of began to do for Knaresborough, not because they replaced the people, but rather water power gave way to coal. They could move coal very, very quickly. So consequently, once you could move coal around the country, that's what drove the railways kind of in the first place, then suddenly, you know, the need for places with these kind of water flows basically diminishes rapidly. The railways are a great engineer of kind of social change. Everywhere they went, they kind of changed things. They ushered in the future. And so the movement of coal meant you just didn't need water mills. What you did need is trains. So consequently, they built here the viaduct, and it stands 78 feet in height. There's 4 spans, each measure 57 feet across. And it first carried trains here in 1851. Lovely old Victorian lamp. Let's try and get that in the shot for you. It's actually the second viaduct to stand on this spot, and the first one was completed 3 years earlier in 1848. But literally minutes before the first train was going to come running across with the Lord Mayor and the dignitaries to celebrate the opening and the arrival of the modern age, cracks and crumbles and rumbles, and the whole thing, over a period of 5 minutes, collapsed into the River Nid. With so much stone falling, the River Nid rose by over 12 feet. And sadly, it killed all the wildlife because the lime in the stone and the dust just made the water so alkaline that nothing could survive in it for decades. So it actually ended up killing the river. It's obviously been brought back now, and it's now got a haven of peace and wildlife. But it just to show you how these events. It's a catastrophe, but some would say it wasn't a surprise. Some would say actually it was predicted. It was predicted by the woman we're about to talk about in a few minutes. But before we go and have a look, talk about Mother Shipton. How is that for a view? So we're now at the other side, look. We're not at the top looking down, we're at the bottom looking up. We see the castle just off centre, the boats, and we see the gorge. You see the war memorial up at the top where we were. So I'll give you some zoom there. You can see the memorial now. That's where we were stood. You'll see, I'll show you the sign. Yep, the sign is about the river, the railway, and the royals. So there's I'll give that one in for you. And I'll do it in 3 so you can see. So this is obviously information about the Nid, the river, which we talked about a little bit, about the Nid Gorge. And so if you're heading sorrow, yeah, no one was killed, thankfully. But as I say, it did do for the nature and the ecology over here was very badly damaged as a result of that. So the railway and the royals about the castle. So let's so as I say, Mother Shipton, it is claimed, predicted this, and Henry VIII called her the Witch of York. Your firework tour was here was great. Yeah, well, we did that. Was the firework tour was on? It was Christmas, wasn't it? We did that at Christmas. That was lovely. I met Natalie. Remember Natalie, the fantastic lady, selling candles on the stall. Loved Natalie. She was great. So Ursula Southall, or Mother Shipton, was born in 1488 in a cave on the opposite bank of the river, and her mother Agatha was hauled in front of the magistrates because she was a single mother. She wasn't married, and she was interrogated, but she refused to name the father. And so as a result, the mother and the daughter were effectively banned from the town. So they lived in a cave using the magic well for drinking water. So bear that in mind when we talk about what's in the water. So Ursula was given up for adoption by a biological mother around the age of 2. And then from a very young age, she began to manifest kind of psychic gifts of divination and prophecy. And she moved into a house with a new family, but strange events started to be happening. And it's claimed that when Ursula was just 2 years old, okay, she was just 2, little one, she's left at home alone while a foster mother goes out to run some errands. And the mother returns to find the front door is wide open. And afraid of what might still be in the house, she calls on her neighbours for assistance. And the group heard a kind of loud wailing, like 1,000 cats in concert, they described it, throughout the house. And Ursula's cradle was found to be empty. And after a frantic search throughout the house, her mother looks up, so we're looking up now, and she sees Ursula naked and cackling, perched up an iron bar where the pot hooks were fastened above the fireplace. So she's up above the fireplace, a little 2-year-old, and she's cackling. Now, Ursula was said to be facially disfigured, and she was cruelly abused. But according to local legend, she could fight back even as a child. And the source written after her death tells of an event where kind of chief members of the parish council were gathered together in a meeting. And Ursula kind of walks past them. She's running an errand for her mum. And the men stopped to mock her, kind of calling her out, hag face, the devil's bastard, they called her. Now, Ursula keeps walking, she's only a small child, continues her errands, but as the man sat back down, the ruff of his neck, okay, turns into a toilet seat. You know the ruff, like Blackadder, the plate thing there on the neck, right? Turns into a toilet seat. So she kind of laughs at them. And the man next to him begins to laugh so much. But as he does so, then his hat is suddenly replaced by a chamber pot. Look at this. This is amazing. Look at this stonework here. So the gathered members of the kind of parish council kind of begin to laugh loudly. So the master of the house of ceremonies, isn't it, came running to see what's happening. And when he kind of tries to run through the door, he found himself blocked by a large pair of horns that suddenly grown at the side of his head. So the sorcerer kind of reports these strange occurrences, but then they reverted back to normal within a kind of short period of time. And the townspeople took them as a kind of sign, just not to mock Ursula. You know, she was somebody that they were to be very, very careful around. And she also had this great knowledge of plants and herbs. And so as a result, she became sort of invaluable resource for the townspeople as a herbalist. And of course, this so often was what sort of saved people from being condemned as witches, was they had a use, if you like. They were scared of her, but also she could help with wellness. So this gave an opportunity to expand a kind of social circle, and it said she met a local carpenter by the name of Toby Shipton. And when she's 24, Shipton and Toby marry. Sorry, Ursula rather, and Toby Shipton marry. And from this point onwards, Ursula adopts her husband's surname and becomes Mother Shipton. So at 24, it sounds old, doesn't it, Mother Shipton? But she was already called that. Now just look at this again. Cute as a button, right? How beautiful is all that? So the people in the town were kind of shocked because apparently he was quite a looker. And they asked a lot of whispering. You know, she enchanted him and she basically bewitched her to kind of marry her. And about a month into her marriage, a neighbour came to her door and she asked for help, saying that somebody had stolen her apron. She left the door open, a thief had come in and stolen a new smock and petticoat. And without hesitation, what Mother Shipton says is, come with me tomorrow. She knows exactly who's stolen it. And they go to the marketplace and she'll retrieve it. So the next morning, Mother Shipton and a neighbour went to the market cross where we started, where she sat a statue. And the woman who'd stolen the clothing just couldn't stop herself. She put the smock over her clothes, the petticoat in her hand, and marched through the town, declaring herself to be a thief. She dances and says, I stole my neighbour's smock and coat. I am a thief, and here I show it. So consequently, Mother Shipton influenced this behaviour. She hands over, so I'll wait for this car to come past. So she hands over the smock, curtsied, and left. So these are the kind of stories that people are saying about Mother Shipton, that she can impact people's behaviour. Look at that. Oh my goodness me, look at that. Look at that for a colour. Isn't that quite something? Aprecia, thank you. This is John there reminding me exactly what it was. Look at that. Let's go in close for just a blast of colour. So, unfortunately for Ursula, 2 years later, her husband dies in 1514. Toby Shipton dies, and people in the town believe that she was responsible for his death. And apparently, you know, she was in deep grief, as you might expect. She'd lost her husband, and the kind of harsh words of the people in the town prompt Ursula to move into the woods, and ironically into the same cave she'd been born, for kind of peace, really. And there she continues to create potions and herbal remedies for people. So just pause the story for just 1 minute. I'll just take you down here, because this is, again, we're at Lowbridge now. And this, again, to me, is just one of the sites of Knaresborough. It is, hi, Ching. Thank you very much. That's most kind. But look at these, again, pleasure boats. They've all got individual names. We'll pick up the story of Ursula just a minute, but it's just so pretty that let's just get you some nice shots. Now look at that. I mean, we can see why, can't we, that Knaresborough is described as Yorkshire's prettiest town. It could be England's prettiest town, couldn't it? I mean, be honest. I mean, there's so many beautiful, you know, we're spoiled for choice. But this, pretty special, huh? So let's do that same shot, but from this side. And we'll get in the viaduct. So again, we'll try and get you lots of the nice boats. And let's try and get low on this one, because I'll just give you a little shot. How is that? Let's just try and get that. There we go. Oh, so get the scaffolding out. There you go. So that just works for me as an image, you know, the way that just the line of the boats, the viaduct in the background. Any of the names Sickleaf. Isn't that wonderful? Okay, so so you can kind of see how, you know, people would have kind of perceived Mother Shipton. But equally, they can be in awe of her, and they know that she has got the powers. She's got the healing touch. She can make the potions, so they come to her. She keeps on making the potions, the herbal remedies, and her name slowly becomes more and more well known. And people would travel far and wide. They cover big distances to come and see her, to receive her potions and her spells. And so as her popularity grew, she grew bolder, and she revealed at this point she could see the future. Now, I can't begin to explain the risk that Ursula was taking. Yeah, fine, Grace. Yeah, go for it. The chances of her being declared a witch and being put to death were, at this stage, very, very high indeed. This is the story, unfortunately, the destiny of far too many women were treated as witches. But she starts to say she can see the future. She starts to make small prophecies involving the town and the people within. And as the prophecies begin to come true, she begins talking about the monarchy and the future of the world. And wow, that sets her in a dangerous place. Because in 1537, King Henry VIII wrote a letter to the Duke of Norfolk talking about the Witch of York, believed to be a reference to Shipton. And she'd clashed with his chief advisor, Cardinal Wolsey, who threatened to have her burnt at the stake. So the stakes, not surprisingly, were very, very high. Many believed she was a witch, but they were terrified of her powers. And she was known to have the power to turn people and objects to stone. And this had been witnessed enough to be believed by everyone in the town. So Mother Shipton's prophecies are actually pretty cryptic. She's believed to have predicted the separation from the Catholic Church under Henry VIII, the fall of Cardinal Wolsey, the premature death of Edward VI, the violent reign of Bloody Mary, and the long reign of her half-sister Elizabeth. She's said to have predicted the Great Plague in 1665 and the Great Fire of London the following year. And similarities between Mother Shipton and Nostradamus are very notable. There's many of them. And just as in the great Nostradamus, in order to avoid persecution for the crime of witchcraft, an awful lot of the prophecies are published in rhyme and verse and deliberately kind of obscure in their language. I'll just show you over here. Cardinal Wolsey, for those that don't know, similar to the nursery rhyme Humpty Dumpty, had a great fall, all the king's horses. So it's about his fall from grace. So consequently, as something of a joke, Humpty Dumpty, the man who wanted to burn Mother Shipton, he was put to death. She's got her own cave. But in 1559, she writes an epic poem which contains her most famous prophecies. And the British prophetess died on November 1561 in Clifton, in Yorkshire. And shortly before her death, Nostradamus died. So after her death, the authorities were able to investigate where it was that Mother Shipton could turn objects to stone. And for those that have visited, you will know that the cave contains what is known as a petrifying well. And the water here has such a high mineral content that objects that are continually exposed to water over literally a period of weeks will quite literally turn to stone. A mineral crust forms cleans the exterior, giving the impression, I hear Alec, here's what you think from this, giving the impression of turned to stone. And it's not, it's a crust of mineral water. But of course, you remember right at the start of our story, if this is same water as Harrogate Spa, yeah, but what do we say? She was drinking this water as a child. So the minerals, the metals in the water, did that impact Mother Shipton? Oh, Sharon, I mean, literally, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of minerals. I couldn't begin to list them all. You know, this is the same as Harrogate, where we've been, of course. You know, so you've got all these different sulfurous compounds, different chalybeates, irons, lots of metals. So So it's almost, there's too many to list. But the water doesn't taste nice at all. It tastes pretty rank, it has to be said. But there we go. So was it simply a case of don't drink the water? It certainly explains how it was the objects turned to stone. So maybe that's all that happened in a lifetime. Maybe the rest of it is myth and legend. But the bottom line is, we're still talking about her, and she died almost 500 years ago. And whatever we know about her, she was born out of wedlock. She was born facially disfigured. She was not born of privilege. We're still talking about her. And these are the people that history tends to discard, throw to one side. We forget about them. So, she did something right, huh? She's still there. So we're almost at the end of the tour. But I just thought we'll just finish up here. I'm not going to make it. Well, I could have kept it going too long. It's now kind of half past. So we're a little bit over. Well, half an hour over actually. So I think we're just going to finish up here. And I just want to talk a little bit about the future, just before we kind of go. Before I'm walking uphill and I get out of breath. Obviously, as many of you will know, Hago draws to a conclusion on Tuesday, and obviously, I've become probably the one who's a person at the front of this that has been working with a bunch of guys to try and pull together some kind of survival plan, and it's far from clear exactly where we've kind of reached. It's like herding cats. Not everybody has the same kind of ideas. We're all working towards the same goal, but as you can imagine, for a lot of people, they've kind of had the rug pulled, so it makes it difficult. But equally, because we've done it in a very short period of time, people have to set aside some of that. So consequently, I think we're kind of getting to close to where we are now. We're going to have a shared calendar very, very soon available. Hopefully the next newsletter will go out on Monday. A mark contain a link where you can find details of the early guys. You're then going to rapidly sort of see some more guys kind of coming on board. So just stay with us, stick with the program. Hago is going. That's nothing we can change about that. That's their choice. Okay, but we're not going anywhere. So do give me a follow on Facebook. My group is All Points North with John. You'll find me there. Very soon we'll start giving other kind of links as to where you can find me websites, so forth. But for now, just join that. I'm John Wright Guide, by the way, on Hago. I'm not John on Facebook. I'm not John Wright anymore because I just had to draw a line between my private life and my sort of public-facing life. So that's where you find me, John Wright Guide, All Points North with John. You'll find all the links in there. There is going to be, we just agreed on the group just kind of recently, if I'm touring in York or I'm at home, it's going to be free to join. Those that can afford to, very welcome to leave a tip. Don't feel the need to, like now. If I'm going further afield, we're going to be then obviously putting a fee on that. But right now, the fee for Whitby is £2. So I think if that's a weekly treat or a monthly treat for somebody, hopefully £2, a shade over $2, isn't going to be kind of too much for people. We want ultimately everybody to postcards. Yeah, hold that thought, Julie. I mean, it depends what we're kind of working on. There's going to be ways. People are going to have workarounds. They're going to come up with it. But we're not there yet. The future's not arrived. What we've done, for those that kind of know military, is to establish a bridgehead. Okay, forward position from where we can rebuild, we can move forward, we can kind of work together. But as I say, we're not there yet. But we're going to do our very, very best to make sure there are tours continuing on after Tuesday. So look out on Monday. If you haven't already subscribed, go and join the Facebook group, which is obviously Live Virtually See the World, ! And you should find there links. My YouTube is All Points North with John. So again, it's the same kind of reference points.